What is white culture? I'm so glad you asked. And I want to be clear, we are talking about white American culture, not like what specific European ethnicities exist in their cultural practice. No, white racialized American culture. There is a big difference. First, we got to look at how any culture is formed. It's not random. It's created through shared experiences, social interactions, and the passing down of knowledge and memories across generations. It evolves, it adapts, it helps people survive, find belonging, make meaning in a specific environment, especially under pressure. So now that we know that, when we talk about racialized cultures in America, because white is a race, let's look at Black American culture. A lot of that came out of survival after violent displacement, enslavement, and being cut off from ancestral lineage. Culture became both resistance and restoration, and a lot of what we attribute to Black culture is rooted in those themes of reclamation and resistance, okay, because of the history. Asian American culture is similar, had to balance preservation and forced assimilation because only certain groups were even allowed into the U.S., and they were often used to uphold white supremacy through the model minority myth, and many stereotypes and ways of being that are attributed to Asian American collective culture came about because of historical systemic oppression. Native American cultures are similar. They were targeted through erasure. That's genocide, boarding schools, banned ceremonies, stolen land. Indigenous cultures still survive in spite of U.S. colonization. Are we seeing a through line in racialized cultures? I want to add that everyone, technically, white folks included, have experienced forced assimilation to some degree. However, saying just that ignores the fact that that pressure came from the same system that I'm talking about, the white supremacist structure built by slave-owning, land-stealing colonizers. So when people say everyone assimilated, that what they're really saying is everyone was forced to conform to whiteness in order to survive. However, we have to acknowledge that only white people in the end have been seen as white as a result of assimilation. Nobody else is viewed that way or enjoys the benefits in the same way. Important distinction. All right, so now that we got the foundation, what is white culture? Whiteness in America is not a culture rooted in struggle or displacement at the hands of other racialized groups. It is a system built on power and access. There are distinct ethnic cultures like Irish American, Italian American, German American, absolutely. Those are heritages, though, not the same as white racial collective identity. You cannot say Italian American culture is white culture because it flattens it and then erases how those same groups were once excluded and othered and then invited into whiteness so long as they upheld racial hierarchy. We saw that with Irish people also, we saw that with Jewish people also, etc. The truth is, whiteness as a racial category was engineered to create division, consolidate power, and maintain control. It works by absorbing some cultures and excluding others. And that shared experience, that collective white racial culture, is one of dominance and not mutual survival because of other races attacking it. So no, white culture is not like Black, Asian American, Native American cultures in the same way. And many people like to act like it's all equivalent, which we know isn't true when we look at history. You cannot say white culture was formed the same way as Black culture. Those cultures were shaped by resistance, and white American culture was shaped to erase that resistance. And when you're asking me what's white culture, the real answer is it's not at all what you have brought to the table. It's the system that told you that the table was already yours and you're trying to keep everybody away. And the only reason that this person even asked this question is because they're trying to argue that certain sports in the US today are examples of white cultural items and that segregation, racism, and exclusion were just ways of gatekeeping those cultural aspects from non-white folks. And while it is true that the behaviors within those sports have mirrored white supremacist values like othering and excluding and dominating and controlling, it does not mean that the sports themselves are white culture. That is a misunderstanding of both history and power. And so many people who think like you call things like baseball American pastimes and equate that with white culture because deep down you only see white people as the real Americans, and that is racist and white supremacist logic. You conveniently ignore the history of forced segregation and racist policies and systemic efforts to exclude non-white people from participating in or being seen as part of the mainstream in society, that's how something like baseball becomes predominantly white in US history, not because of culture, but because of deliberate exclusion, colonialism, etc. And I want to be clear, white people did not even do the bulk of the labor at all in building this country. Enslaved people built the economy. Asian Americans built the railroads. Indigenous people stewarded this land long before genociding colonizers came through. So every piece of this country's foundation was laid by non-white hands while being shut out of recognition, opportunity, and representation. So no, sports are not some white cultural artifact. Sports reflect the larger society because they're part of society, and in the US, that means they reflect a society founded on white supremacy, colonization, and systemic exclusion. That's y'all's legacy. But that doesn't make them inherently white culture. That makes them a battleground like everything else in this country that was built on stolen land and stolen labor, and a nation that's always been multicultural, despite how hard whiteness has tried to erase that truth. Again, most of your argument is rooted in the fact that you and people who think like you believe white people, no matter where they come from, are the only real Americans. And that is your own internalized white supremacy showing. Until next time, y'all.
Hi lovelies, how you all doing? My name is Olivia. In case you're just coming across my video for the first time, okay? I want to say thank you all to all my subscribers for rocking with me and supporting this channel. You all are really you all are the ones keeping me going, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. Okay, so today's episode, these Asian sisters open up about what white culture is all about, and white folks are not taking it lightly like they are furious. But let's be real, guys. When we talk about black culture, Asian culture, and other cultures, Latinos, you can name the food, the music, and the traditions, right? But when people bring up white cultures in America, most of the time what comes up in people's mind is racism, privilege and control, because that's what white people are all about. And see, that's the part that stinks, right? Because it's not about lies, it's about the truth. You all know the outrage you are saying isn't because she said something wild. It's because she said something real. White culture has often been tied to gatekeeping and power. And if that makes people angry, maybe they should ask themselves why the truth hurts so much. So what do you all think? Was she wrong for saying, the truth? Or do you guys know any white culture we don't know? Let's know in the comment section, okay? Drop your thoughts below. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and support the channel, of course, by subscribing to the channel.
Oh, you left the comment up. I gave you a chance to delete this. This is your own fault. So you said sports are white culture. They were just gatekeeping it, something black people do today with their own culture. This was in response to a video I did on Jackie Robinson enduring racism while he broke the color barrier in MLB. We're gonna unpack the ignorance because I cannot believe you are so serious about this. To say the broad category of all sports is solely white culture has zero factual merit whatsoever and is some crazy white supremacist KKK brain logic. They gatekept sports the same way they gatekept land, wealth, language, people, education. You know what that's called? When white people in the US use their power and intentions to actively oppress everyone else? Yeah, that's called white supremacy. And by the way, reminder that white folks are the only race of people to ever do that here. Much like what was happening in the rest of the country due to, racism, prejudice, white supremacy, Jim Crow. Black people were not allowed to play in the NCAA until the 1950s. They weren't allowed in the NBA until the 1950s. They were banned from MLB until Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947. I have so many more facts regarding that, as we know. But anyway, this comment, like I said, was responding to the Jackie Robinson video. And even after all of this, even after some desegregation, Black people were still harassed, threatened, beaten, isolated, killed, lynched, because whiteness didn't just gatekeep, it violently enforced exclusion. The real reason sports were segregated is because sports are part of society and mirror whatever is happening in society. They don't happen in a vacuum, which I know is hard for some people who don't normally critically think to comprehend, but we're going to try. What you're calling white culture is systemic exclusion. If your culture requires locking others out to survive and holding them down and creating a pseudo meritocracy, it's not culture, it is oppression. And the fact that you think not letting people in is somehow the same thing as Black people protecting their hairstyles, their food, their music from exploitation, that is peak colonizer racist logic that you're working with. Let's go a little deeper. Was it gatekeeping white culture when y'all didn't let Black folks drink from white-only water fountains? What about when y'all threw rocks at Ruby Bridges, who was, by the way, a 6-year-old child? What about when y'all bombed Black Wall Street? How about when y'all created government housing programs that intentionally shut out Black families, giving white people a leg up through FHA loans in white-only suburbs? Is it culture when entire Black towns like Johnsonville, Morganton, Tuskegee, Tennessee, they're flooded out on purpose? How about the KKK? What about slavery? Was that all just gatekeeping? See, you're upset that Black people want folks to stop appropriating their culture and start showing genuine respect and to show up for a community that has been actively oppressed and violated. Wearing cornrows and throwing around AAVE is not the same as, let me check my notes, legislating oppression, throwing rocks at Black children for going to school, lynching people out of hate and getting away with it, drowning a town. This isn't the same thing, and if you somehow think it is, again, crazy level of white supremacist KKK brain logic. What you're calling white culture is really just a history of systemic exclusion, unseasoned mediocrity, and repackaging of everyone else's culture. If your culture only survives by keeping people out, stealing from them, and then punishing them for asking for credit, it is not culture, it is oppression. Black people protecting their culture is not gatekeeping, it's survival. It's trying to set some boundaries in a system that has literally taken everything and then pretended it never did. From jazz to rock to country to AAVE to cookouts to cornrows to streetwear, Black culture has been lifted, renamed, and resold without respect or acknowledgement while actively oppressing that very community. And y'all stay mad when people say, give us our credit. Meanwhile, white folks had centuries of affirmative action and a leg up in society and land, laws, housing, education, media, and we're somehow talking about DEI today being unfair? Be so for real. You want to call all that theft and exclusion a tradition? Fine, do what you want. Just don't act surprised when people call it what it really is, which is a legacy of manufactured superiority built on stolen brilliance. Also, it's 2025. Stop being proudly racist on the internet. Y'all are so embarrassing. You can keep your unseasoned food. You can keep your weird jello meat food dishes. You can keep all that stuff that nobody wants. Give credit where it's due and try to critically think a little bit. Oh, and stay off my page. Until next time, y'all.
I would say I'd love to break this to you, but I actually fucking hate to break this to you. The fact that America's culture is propagated and perpetuated on labor and exploitation, and not culture. Anybody with any modicum of critical thinking skills has a giant question mark above their head as a white person wondering, what is my culture here? What do I do? What do I celebrate? And the answer is we've been spoon-fed white picket fences and women's free labor under the guise of womanhood and motherhood. And that's not culture. It's fascinating seeing this uptick in people doing their genetic testing to figure out where they came from, where their nationalities were of their ancestors, and this recentering of trying to prioritize a culture and reclaim that. I say this particularly in the white people space because I think a lot of people are realizing that there is no culture, like there is no white people culture in America, because it's literally just based on the exploitation of other people. And if there wasn't such a stupid-ass debate on critical race theory, which exists and should not be debatable, then more people would be aware of this, and aware of their history, where they came from, and how we've come to where we are due to colonization. The truth of the matter is we need to collectively acknowledge the harm that colonization has done to everybody, but particularly to marginalized communities, and the effect and the acknowledgement that that also harms white people as well. So does patriarchy. Patriarchy harms men. And for some reason, we're trying to deny that this is a fact, and they're defining woke as the belief that injustices, racial, social, and otherwise, exist. Go fucking figure that you get to debate history as a belief. I've seen Black creators talk about this, and the alarm sounds are fucking blaring. White people, you need to acknowledge that horrible things have happened in the past, and you need to make not only reparations, but you also need to be an ally, and you need to understand that this system isn't benefiting anybody but the fucking 1%. The amount of delusion that people just get to decide racism doesn't exist, or get to decide that these things aren't affecting them when they really are, it's infuriating. But like other white people, I've been really thinking about where I came from and what my culture was and who my ancestors were, because it's not something that's celebrated here or acknowledged. I truly think this reclaiming of culture will really help offset the racism and the hatred that comes along with not having a culture and just having labor be our culture in America. Somebody asked me what the most American thing that I could think of was, and I honestly said rebellion and unions. And guess what? Those are both based on, you guessed it, labor. So be present, uplift other voices, amplify other voices, be aware of where you came from, and reject the idea that labor should be an actual culture. Fuck that white picket fence. It was never made for you or me. It was only made for the 1% who likes to blow money and exploit us. That's my TED Talk.
I'm on my journey to deconstruct my white privilege, my white culture, otherwise known as white supremacy. White people, in my comments, I know you're white, you don't have a profile picture, but you're in my comments, and you're telling on yourselves, and it's really disgusting. And y'all need to heal. My fellow white people, this is for you. We need to heal. I was not able to open my eyes to this until I learned to listen to my body. Once I learned to listen to myself, I could be curious about why I'm being defensive. My first reaction is to go into defensive mode every single time. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't, like when White Woman Whisperer said that women are the men, white women are the men of women. Instant went to gaslighting. I instantly started saying, no, this is about men. What are you talking about? Like this isn't about, what? Are you missing? Like, no, they're not missing anything. It's me missing it. And it's time for me to be curious about why I'm defensive about that. Be curious about what their side of the story or their perspective may be, and learn that holy fucking shit, I am passive aggressive in the workplace. I'm one of those fucking bitches in the workplace that's passive aggressive. And if we are white, I don't know, yes I do know her, Jen the nurse. She spoke about, I love her so much. I don't know where she lives, but she's definitely in an area that is not saturated with white people. She said that if you are not treating black people differently as a nurse, then you are not doing it right. Like, you are wrong. And everyone in the comments like, what do you mean you can't treat everyone's equal? Like, no. We need to treat them better than what we would our fellow white person. We need to treat them better. If we're not treating them, if we're not giving them an extra level of care, if we're not giving extra reassurance to the people that we have put trauma on, there's no equality. There will never be equality. So no, we need to stop. I have totally reevaluated. And it's not, I'm not saying anything passive aggressive. I'm not, but it's the tone. It's the white woman tone. It's the passive aggressive tone. It's the passive aggressive pauses. It's the, oh, you're going to correct me. Okay, I'm going to make this difficult for you. Just, I grew up with white women, and our culture as white women is to be passive aggressive. And I don't know if that's everyone's experience. I'm speaking about my own experience, my lived experience growing up Mormon in a white, highly conservative household. That's how it was. And we need to heal. White people, go to therapy. Genuinely, I went to an IOP therapy for my trauma to help me be able to figure out who I am as a person, because white supremacy has completely stripped me of all individuality, of my entire identity. I didn't have an identity in the white culture because they teach you not to, especially in the Mormon culture. It's like you blend in, you look like everyone, or you're the black sheep. And I am definitely, it makes sense why I've never gotten along with white women. But here I am being one of them. Like, I look back at the videos that I posted, and that was like, what, 3 weeks ago? And I'm like, I'm so dumb. Like, how did I not know that? And there's people in my comments that are like, wow, you're just now, like, I'm just a dumb white bitch, y'all. I'm just a dumb white bitch. But I'm a dumb white bitch who's learning, okay? And come along with me. We can learn together.
Corporate culture is white supremacy culture, and the 12th characteristic of white supremacy culture is I'm the only one. This is closely related to individualism, and this is from dismantlingracism.org. It's saying that basically you feel like you are the only one that can get it done. There is no ability to delegate, and this is obviously bad for so-called leadership, because how are you supposed to be a good leader if you don't feel like you can delegate? Toxic organizations benefit from this, because if you were to become a team, an actual team that collaborates and delegates and doesn't feel like each individual person has to conquer everything alone, then you become strong and maybe you could advocate for change in the organization. They want people to be divided, especially in a toxic organization. They want you to feel all alone. And this is not the way that we're designed, and it's not the best way to do things. Why would we do it that way? This is something that's worth unlearning. Why are we glorifying being the hero in situations when we should be working together and excited to succeed as a team? It's better that way. This is saying that the antidote is to evaluate people based on their ability to delegate to others. So if they're not able to delegate well and they're not being a team player, that should be an issue. Not, oh, wow, you are able to complete all this stuff by yourself and just sacrifice yourself to the cause, even though we don't care about you and we'll discard you in the blink of an eye. Instead, actually make sure that people can work together well, that they can actually be a leader that delegates. It also says evaluate people based on their ability to work as part of a team to accomplish shared goals. We don't value this in a lot of corporations and toxic workplaces, and we should.
Have the people that say white people have no culture ever been to an SEC football game?
Is this what you mean?